So it's a delight to be joined by the Managing Director of Bluestone Mortgages, Steve Seal, OBE, MBE, Knighthood. Steve, you had a wonderful year, both as a leader with a specialist lender, but also as a lender in Bluestone. Why has it been so good for you?
Yeah, I mean, thanks for the introduction. Nice to see you looking into the future there, Rob. And thanks for the time coming off this broadcast. So from my perspective, yeah, last 12 months, I mean, what a year, right, for Bluestone and for the market. I guess 12 months ago, kind of June 2020, we were coming out of that first major lockdown, which every business in not just in our sector, but across the UK, of course, had to navigate their way through. Hugely challenging for many of us. But I think what's really positive about the last 12 months is the growth in demand that we've seen from consumers for complex credit lending solutions available through lenders like Bluestone. Now, that might seem quite a strange thing to say, I guess, but from my perspective, what that shows is that, you know, as we've seen unprecedented demand, what that says to me is that customers who have faced challenges over the last 12 months, whether that's linked to the pandemic or other life events, are finding their way to specialist lenders and being able to fulfill their home ownership ambitions rather than being disenfranchised by the mainstream lending community. So the more and more customers that are kind of navigating their way through that advice process and finding lenders like Bluestone is great. I mean, it's been a challenging year, Rob. I'm not going to lie. I know, you know yourself. You know, will have dealt with colleagues working from home. That's never the easiest kind of environment to work your way through, but I think we've done that well. The payment holiday piece was huge for us and managing that kind of thing. But ultimately, the one kind of reflection I have on the last 12 months is that huge, unprecedented growth, about 90% up year on year in terms of volumes, which is quite phenomenal, but a real strong positive in that customers are finding their way through to lenders like Bluestone and not being disenfranchised from the mainstream community.
Yeah, without giving out any confidential market information, it's just a personal observation. I can't think there'll be any mortgage lender in the UK mortgage market last year that grew by 90%. That's an incredible statistic.
Yeah, so that's not through the whole year, just to make sure we're being transparent. So if we compare January and February of 2021 to January and February 2020, volumes are up 90% year on year. So for us, that's a huge measure of the demand, the success of our business, but also the demand from consumers for those kind of type of solutions.
You're almost trying to talk yourself out of that. 90% is 90%. That's absolutely amazing. Well done. So, I mean, has the obviously the massive influx of business that's presumably influenced your decision recently on your loan to values?
Yeah, I thought you might mention that one, Rob. So it's a fair question, and you're absolutely right. So from our perspective, again, going back exactly 12 months and emerging from that first lockdown, volumes that we started to see come through the front door were higher than we'd ever experienced in any period prior to the pandemic. I mean, from our perspective as a lender, obviously that's great news. We're delighted to look after those customers, but it takes time for a business to react to such an unprecedented increase in demand. So, you know, we've reacted as positive as I think we could. As soon as we got comfortable those volumes were sustainable, which was an important measure for us, we've gone out and actively recruited. So our underwriting and lending teams are 70% higher in terms of headcount than they were 12 months ago. And for me, that's a great reflection of how the business has gone out there and proactively increased the headcount. But what we've seen is that the demand, even though we've done that, the demand has continued to exceed our operational capacity. And as a consequence, as a lender who's really passionate about service, what we didn't want to do, Rob, is make sure that those brokers and end customers are not getting the type of service that we think is reflective of our brand and the way that we want to engage with intermediaries. So we took that decision to just lower our LTVs for a while, just to give us a short break, and only be about 6 to 8 weeks, something like that, Rob, but a period of time just to allow us to catch up on that pipeline, knowing that when we come back, we're fully resourced and ready to return to the levels that we've seen prior to that change.
Well, that's a really sensible decision. I think none of us can have an issue with that, and also it frees up, I guess, a bit of extra capacity to deal with any tricky completions towards the end of this month and the 30th of June as well. That
was very much in our mindset as we made that decision. Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, and it would be nice to think that that would also allow some of you at Bluestone to get the odd holiday, but I'm sure that's not going to happen anytime soon.
It's where they go, Rob, is the challenge. But hopefully people will get the opportunity to have a well-earned break, because the last 12 months has been challenging for everybody in the business as we've worked our way through those volumes. And let's hope that the restrictions make things a little easier for people in the second half of the year for them to get away and have a well-earned rest.
I'll toast to that. So there's still almost too many brokers that just are not embracing complex credit mortgages. Why do you think that's the case?
It's a great question. I mean, I think there are some misconceptions around complex credit and specialist lending. To pick out common statements that I would hear from brokers, they think it's too difficult or too time consuming to kind of engage with those type of loans. But I think from my perspective, that just isn't the reality. And I think from our perspective as lenders, we have a responsibility to make sure that we're clear and transparent with brokers when they're engaging with lenders like Bluestone in terms of how they should submit those loans to us, what the packaging requirements are. We do need to be balanced. There's always going to be some additional requirements for lenders like Bluestone versus the high street lender. I'm not going to shy away from that, but that doesn't mean that the process should be materially more difficult for a broker to work their way through. I think it's just about us setting the right expectations and having the right service levels, hence the comment we were just talking about, to make sure that the experience is seamless for both broker and consumer. I think, sorry, Rob, I was just going to say from a tech point of view, though, I think, as we look forward, there's a real opportunity for businesses specialist lenders and complex credit lenders to embrace technology to ease that process as well. But that's a fine balance for lenders like us, because where we focus very heavily on holistic underwriting and pragmatic underwriting, we don't want to lose the value of that by embracing technology too heavily. But at the same time, we want to ease the process and streamline the process as far as possible by embracing top technology, but keeping the value of that holistic underwriting is really important for us.
Agreed. Yeah, and I've been doing a lot of talking recently about future proofing, and for me, the easiest, most straightforward sector to future proof your business as a mortgage intermediary is complex credit mortgages, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that. I mean, from my perspective, I think if you look forward to the next 12 months, what sector is going to grow at the rate of the complex credit market? I mean, in the mortgage market, I don't think there will be one. We're going to see customers emerging from various different stages of this pandemic. I think there'll be real challenges for some of the self-employed community. I think there'll be real challenges for some people who've worked in the most severely affected industries. And there'll be people coming out with all sorts of complex financial positions who will need the help of advisors to understand what solutions are available to them in the marketplace and how to realise those solutions just as importantly. I was reading a stat the other day, CCJs. So if we look at Q4 2020, I think that's the latest data that's out, CCJs were up 73% on the previous quarter. I mean, that stat alone shows that customers' credit profiles are going to start to look very different than they might have done in a pre-pandemic environment. And those customers will struggle in some cases going through automated credit scoring systems of mainstream lenders. And that's where specialist distributors like you, Rob, and specialist lenders like ourselves can help brokers and their consumers find a route to market.
Yeah, agreed. So from a lender that's seen its comparative period, January, February 20 to 21 go up 90% and has had to reduce loan to values just to deal with the overcapacity of undercapacity of amount of deals coming through. Is there not therefore a likelihood that you will be joined by a new peer group in specialist lending? I mean, we haven't really seen. I'm trying to think, since probably yourselves and maybe TML came into the market a few years back. We haven't seen any new lenders, new incumbents. Are we due to see a few soon? Do you think?
You could say we're due, and you're right. The direction of traffic has been the other way, Rob. Not in terms of entry, but some exits. And I'm aware. So if we look across the specialist lending market more broadly, I'm aware of people wanting to try and eat into that kind of professional portfolio buy to let space. I'm not particularly aware of anyone who's kind of got the complex credit market on their target roadmap. But that doesn't mean it won't be the case. And I'd welcome that. I mean, from my perspective, competition in this landscape creates better customer outcomes, and I think we all embrace that. So for me, it's a fascinating market. I think you're right that there's a great opportunity for lenders to embrace the opportunities in the complex credit market. And let's see what happens.
Yeah, as long as there's sensible pricing. I mean, I think we'd all agree that it's really dangerous if we have a pricing model that gets very close to high street, because then
that pricing model is a really important point. So we talk about our growth. That's growth that's been led by customer demand, not by Bluestone going out and entering any kind of rate war that you sometimes see in the marketplace. So I could count on literally one or two fingers how many times we've changed our rates in the last 12 months. That's not a model. It's true customer demand, and we don't see that so much in the specialist market. But you're right. The danger is the bigger it gets, the greater that challenge becomes.
Yeah, and I guess another barrier to entry is it's a very expensive market to get involved. You've got to have good expensive tech. You've got to have good expensive staff. You've got to be able to command distribution with well experienced people, and none of that is either quick or cheap, is it? So I mean, that's, I guess, a major barrier to entry is the amount of capex expenditure that's going to need to go in if you're going to get a foothold.
Yeah, that's very fair. It's very fair, and it's probably my biggest, not the entry point, but the point you were making there around people is probably my biggest challenge as we look to the next 12 months. So having reflected back on the last 12, if we look forward, I think my biggest challenge is, as we talk passionately about that service piece and wanting to make sure that brokers and customers are getting the right experience. For me, my big challenge in achieving that is getting the right people with the right skills in the right places to make sure that I've got enough bums on seats in the business to deliver the right level of service to brokers. And that's a big challenge because, we're going out and looking for, particularly in the underwriting world, underwriters who are able to take real, detailed, holistic views of customer circumstances and make risk-based judgments on those loans. And that's a very different skill set to underwriters that we might find in other sectors of the lending world. And that for me, I think is a challenge, not just for me, but other specialist lenders in the marketplace as well.
Yeah, and I'd agree with that. And I think also it comes with a higher pricing point as well, doesn't it? I mean, quality people are not inexpensive; they're expensive by definition. All right. So in terms of the future landscape, it's probably quite a nice ending question. So you've had a fantastic last 12 months, a really good first couple of years. How long have you been MD of the lender now?
2 years now, Rob. 2 years.
Yeah, I thought it was 2 years. Okay, so a really good honeymoon period of the first 2 years. So does it get horribly wrong from this point onwards, or do you continue to be the blue-eyed boy in our Antipodean empire?
Nice link to blue there for Bluestone.
Yeah.
So I hope not is the answer to that question. That's certainly not my plan or the intention. So I think if we look forward, we're super excited. So from my perspective, we expect the strong growth rate that we've seen over the last 12 months to continue. Perhaps not quite at the same rate, but certainly for very, very strong growth over the next 12 months. I think many brokers will have seen the Unlendables campaign that Bluestone kind of pushed out earlier this year, and we're very passionate about continuing that customer advocacy point and making those customers who can consider themselves to be unlendable and making those customers realise that they are in fact entirely lendable in many situations. And that'll be a huge focus for us. So I think you can expect the brand to be strong over the next 12 months. I think you can expect some exciting product enhancements to come out. Obviously, I can't kind of give you too much detail on those, but we have a very exciting roadmap ahead of us for the next 12 months. And importantly, just as an exciting roadmap, I think, from a service delivery perspective as well. So as we come out of the next couple of weeks and we return back up to 85% LTV, we've got a lot of plans within the business in terms of how we're going to streamline that end-to-end application journey to make life easier for ourselves and to make life easier for brokers and the consumers. So there's a lot of change planned over the next 12 months. So change focus is a big priority for us, but we're super excited about it.
Well, look, that's wonderful to hear. And look, thanks for being a brilliant partner, and also thanks for not coming on particular vlog dressed in a pair of Scout shorts. I remember doing one with you last year when you just moved into that beautiful new office of yours, I think literally a day or two before. And it was cavernous but completely empty. Are you getting back to feeling?
Yeah, we are.
The space now. Good.
It's interesting. So in answer to your question, you'll note I've only been sat down and listened to you rather than stood up. And we are starting to get people back in, Rob. Actually, I think we're getting a growing demand for people to start to come back. I was in the office the other day, and there were certainly more people in there than I've seen at any point over the last 18 months or so. And we're kind of finalising our plans, and let's hope that come September we'll be back to some level of what we expect the new normal to be like, which will be a balance between office and home working. But we're excited about getting people back in and starting that and protecting that culture of the business, which we're really passionate about.
Yeah, no, I get that. All right, look, I think that's a wrap. Thank you ever so much for your time. The very best of luck, and hopefully I'll see you on a cruise at some point. Probably a cruise to nowhere, I would think.
Well, maybe, but at least I'll have my shorts on, so all good.
I hope so. Yeah, all right. See you soon. Thanks, Steve.